Hello, it's Tom here with a technical look at Sniper Elite 4 on PS4, PS4 Pro and Xbox One. Maybe best known for its stomach-churning slow-motion kill shots, I've had a surprising amount of fun with this purely as a tactical shooter. Developer Rebellion claims the size of each map is now 3 times those of the last game, a big step forward for the Azura engine at its heart. It's a much bigger playing field than Sniper Elite 3, on the one hand giving more freedom to tackle objectives how we like, but on the other it does demand a lot more from these 3 machines than the last game, as you'll see. Okay, let's go straight for the jugular with frame rate tests. This 3-way view still gives an idea of how the visuals stack up, and on first glance the graphic settings are very close on Xbox One, PS4 and PS4 Pro. However, it's in the performance that the 3 are really divided, so let's go through each in order. On Xbox One you get a capped 30 FPS experience, but with an adaptive VSync that allows the game to tear when a frame fails to render within its 33.3 millisecond render time. In other words, if Xbox One can't hold a stable 30 FPS, which is sadly very often the case, you'll see full screen tearing. This means you'll get a perceptible wobble to the screen in taxing areas, with only partial frames being pushed out by the Xbox GPU. Really, I'm going to say this up front, Xbox One is by far the worst performer of the 3, and as a result of the tearing it's also one of the worst looking. Case in point, it drops to as low as 18 FPS during scoped in views, and generally runs in the mid to high 20 FPS region while running around the map. As you can see, the other 2 formats are by no means perfect, but there's a reason Xbox One's struggling as it is here. Despite running on a relatively weaker GPU compared to PS4 and PS4 Pro, this machine is rendering at the same native 1080p resolution, and almost with matching visual settings to a regular PS4. Yes, I can confirm all 3 platforms you see here run at 1920 by 1080. Even the PS4 Pro, which is supported at the game's launch, renders at 1080p even when set to its 4K mode. Now, visuals are improved on PS4 Pro to make up for this matching resolution, which I'll cover later on. But outside of a downgrade in texture and shadow filtering, Xbox One is broadly on par with the standard PS4 visuals. Zooming ahead with Xbox One first, notice how shadow filtering at the back of this scene is sharpened on a regular PS4. There's some slight advantages with object rendering on PS4 as well, but otherwise everything else is the same on Xbox One, down to the screen resolution, grass draw distance, shadow resolutions up close, and ambient occlusion quality. There may be a fine margin of difference elsewhere, but the standard PS4 isn't getting too much more here, all of which brings us back to the frame rate. Unlike Xbox One, both of Sony's machines run with an entirely uncapped frame rate, with VSync always enabled. The bad news for the base PS4 in the middle, of course, is it just isn't capable of holding 60 FPS when it matters. The frame rate lurches up and down from 30 to 50 FPS, and this really could have benefited from taking the Xbox One approach. Running entirely uncapped proves PS4 could have held down a stable 30 FPS lock if Rebellion put that in, or even gave the option. This machine is capable of much smoother results, but as it is, we have an inconsistent wavering line that makes movement feel uneven. I really think they could strike a middle ground here, because it's rare to see PS4 drop below 30 FPS. Okay, let's move on to the PS4 Pro, and this is where it gets interesting. Because while yes, even if you have your PS4 Pro hooked up to a 4K screen, it still renders at 1080p. But the idea here is Sniper Elite 4 uses the machine's extra GPU and CPU horsepower to render out higher quality effects, closer to what you might get on PC's better settings. So according to Rebellion's website, PS4 Pro gets not only the enhanced frame rates you see here, but also increased draw distances, geometric detail, lighting, shadows and reflections. Now in practice, I have to say the frame rate boost is the real game changer overall. Most of the visual upgrades are only subtle in general play, whereas the performance is a substantial upgrade over the regular PS4. It is much closer to 60 FPS now, and you'll feel it immediately when switching between these 3 machines. It isn't a perfect turnout by any means, and those lengthy bouts at 45 FPS are noticeable when battles kick off. but in terms of controller response, this does feel much better. Again, it's a shame no 30fps lock is given as an option, because PS4 Pro could easily even out that framerate line at a half refresh. As it stands, it's close but no cigar, though clearly the best performing of the trio. Okay, so finally let's look at PS4 Pro's visual upgrades. I must stress we're talking about embellishments you'll notice far across the map, best noticed when put side by side with a regular PS4. That said, the improved geometry and draw distances on PS4 Pro do stand out. Check out this walk forward, where the standard PS4 is fading in grass and rocks in the distance, whereas PS4 Pro has these parts already rendered. The proposed shadow, lighting and reflection improvements are much harder to spot, but a large overview of the first map shows the gulf in foliage detail. Looking ahead, PS4 looks decent as it is, but PS4 Pro fills out the scene with plenty more rocks and plants. Going back to the standard PS4, there's even signs of improved tessellation on cave walls with the Pro Edition. These are nice extras, but again I did struggle to notice them in general play compared to the regular machine. For me, performance is the tangible upgrade on PS4 Pro. If there is a complaint, it's really that having the game run at a higher resolution, even 1440p, would have been a more satisfying option for 4K users. It's possible the game could still have run at 1440p while targeting a 30fps cap like Xbox One, and done it with frames to spare. But in fairness, this is an area Rebellion may well have looked at before deciding to push the visual settings up instead. Right, so that'll do for now. Just like the last entry in the series, Sniper Elite 4 makes a reasonable case for developers to add an optional 30fps cap. It's something we actually ended up with on the Xbox One versions of Sniper Elite 3 after a patch. I'm hopeful we'll get something similar for PS4 and PS4 Pro in this case, because right now neither can quite cut it hitting that top refresh. Anyway, let me know what you think of this in the comments. As ever, do like and subscribe if you found this analysis useful, and don't forget to check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, where you can find the original source file for this video. But until next time, thanks for watching.